Let's get more reaction to the Prime Minister and the Chancellor staying in their jobs despite being fined for breaking lockdown laws. We're going to talk now to Carl May. Carl's brother, Tom, died with COVID 2 days before the first national lockdown was announced. Tom was 32. Carl, hello, good morning to you.
Good morning.
The Prime Minister and the Chancellor have said sorry. They've paid their fine. The Prime Minister said he humbly accepts that he made a mistake. He said it was an inadvertent breach. How do you respond?
I think part of saying sorry, I've got 2 children. Boris Johnson's got at least a few more than that, maybe many more than that. What I teach my children is that when you make an apology, part of that is a commitment to changing your behaviour. And I mean, although that remains to be seen, I'm highly doubtful we will see a change in this Prime Minister's behaviour.
There are a number of people who say, and including people in his own party who were previously calling for his resignation, who say, look, we've got a cost of living crisis, we've got a war in Ukraine. It would be absurd to get rid of the Prime Minister and the Chancellor right now.
Well, that's the Conservative Party for you, isn't it? Dodge, deflect, smoke, mirrors, look over here, look over there.
Well, those were Conservatives who were calling for him to resign.
So why aren't they doing it now?
Ago.
What's changed for them?
Well, they say a lot's changed. We've got a war in Europe, and we've got a mega cost of living crisis.
Been a beacon, a Chilean leader he always dreamt of being, hasn't he? Lumbering all these refugees with bureaucratic nightmares just so they can escape the war.
Well, the Ukrainians say he's been a really strong ally and provided them with much lethal aid and non-lethal aid.
Well, that's for them to say, and I wouldn't argue against them if that's their experience and they're entitled to that. But from my point of view, I don't think he's made any significant personal contribution that could have been equalled or better by someone else, someone who perhaps wasn't a liar.
And who would that be in the Conservative Party, do you think?
I mean, you're asking me to pick my favourite flavour of animal poo there. I really wouldn't know.
When the Prime Minister says sorry, what do you think he's saying sorry for?
Being caught, obviously. When this first came out, he could have admitted to all the parties, all the interactions he'd had that maybe would have been in a grey area or a borderline, as he would put it. He could have done that then, but he didn't. This is classic being sorry because you're caught. The whole, we'll wait for Sue Gray's report to come out. We'll wait and see what the police say. I don't think it's a coincidence that this has come out during the Easter break.
Well, what you think the Metropolitan Police have timed it deliberately? So it's
I don't know. Does it seem convenient to you that he's not going to be hauled up in front of the Prime Minister's questions tomorrow?
I mean, I'm sure the Met would absolutely reject that suggestion.
I'm sure they would. I'm just putting it out there.
You sound...
I'm livid.
Well, I was going to say, you sound really angry for completely understandable reasons.
It's unthinkable. I had to watch my mum and dad stand alone across my brother's graveside. My brother who died 2 days into the first national lockdown. If that lockdown had been brought forward, there's a really good chance that he'd still be alive. And I wouldn't criticise him too much for that decision. That was a very difficult and nuanced decision of when to bring the lockdown in. However, laws were in place at that time of my brother's funeral whereby I was to remain isolated and not interact with people outside my household. So I stood there and watched my family grieve my brother, and we all stood there alone. My wife couldn't come to my brother's funeral. My nan and my granddad couldn't come because we were wanting to protect them. We had to split households and say, look, only one of you from each household can come and be around the graveside. And it's absolutely astonishing. He claims that he understands what we've gone through. He hasn't got a clue. If you'd like to pass him my phone number and he can give me a call, and I'll tell him exactly how it feels, and maybe then his apology would mean a little bit more.
I mean, he might understand to a certain extent because he had COVID himself and was in intensive care.
Yeah. You'd really think that would sort of sharpen the mind as to the seriousness of the disease and the importance of following the guidelines that he put in place, wouldn't you? But sort of looking at his behaviour during the pandemic thereafter and all these parties, if you can call them that, which I think you can, although apparently Boris Johnson begs to differ, you really think he would have changed his behaviour, but he didn't. He never learns. He's a charlatan, he's a scam artist, and just like everything else in his past that he's wheedled out of, he'll wheedle out of this. I mentioned on 5 Live, the guy is the most non-stick material known to man. I mean, if it wasn't so important and he wasn't in charge of our country, I'd be quite impressed by it.
Is it plausible in your mind at all that it didn't occur to him that it was a breach of the laws? Because in that cabinet room, that's where he works, that's where he has meetings. And so a number of people in there for 9 minutes to say happy birthday or sing happy birthday was
But
why.
don't bite it for a second. You know, I work in a busy workplace. I'm a laboratory scientist. We had heavy restrictions on how we were to work in this place, as I'm sure they did at number 10. They must have done. We had to book areas of the lab that we were going to work in, be masked up. Areas of the labs had perspex screening, and I'm sure in a busy workplace such as number 10 Downing Street, they had the same restrictions. If he genuinely believed that that was not a party, is that the sort of man we want to be running the country? The person who doesn't realise that when there's a cake and people singing happy birthday and a group of people having drinks is not a party? You know, the guy is famously very articulate and has a good grasp of the English language. I'd love to hear his definition of what a party is.
Can I ask what your brother was like?
Just yeah, a lovely fella, a great fella. He was my sort of counterpoint in life. You know, he was my you know, in sort of family arguments or tussles, he'd tell me if I was the one being out of order, and I would take his opinion. He was I suffer from anxiety a little bit, and he was really good at telling me, you know, when it was time to sort of, you know, he'd let me get my issues out with him, and then say, right, now it's time to sort of, you know, chin up and march on, sort of thing. And I miss him so much, and that's the point of this. When all this has gone away and all this is tomorrow's chip papers, there's 150,000 people dead, and that's 150,000 groups of loved ones and friends and family who've all lost people that were dear to them and had to suffer grieving under those conditions. And it's bad enough that he had these parties, but to lie about them as well. How are people still giving them their backing? Well, he's been proven to be a liar.
He says he made a mistake. I want to ask, Carl, what your message is to Conservative MPs then, who at the moment, at least anyway, until the next general election when the general public can have their say, hold his future in their hands, it would seem.
You've got to put in your votes of no confidence. How can you have confidence in a man that has been proven to lie? He's a proven liar. He's not a great leader. He's only interested in being world king. It's ludicrous. The man is an absolute joke. If you've got any shred of decency about you as a Conservative MP, get your letter of no confidence in now and do it today. Don't toe the line. Don't be honourable for a man who doesn't even know what honourable means. It's so ironic that he has the title The Right Honourable Boris Johnson. The guy doesn't know what honour or doing the right thing is. It's ludicrous. Put your letter in now. Do it now.
Carl May, thank you for talking to us this morning. Thank you.